This meeting is being recorded.
Okay. Well, welcome students who are here live and students who will be joining us in the archive. We are here with Gina Seymour, who is also known as the Compassionate Maker. Hey, and probably a few other things.
Let's not go there.
No, okay. And I have been following her work for quite a while, and I'm so impressed with all that she's doing. And I had been struggling with the Makerspace movement in some ways for a while, until I saw what Gina was doing, and then it started to kind of fall into place for me. Anyway, let's put that aside for a moment. But Gina, would you mind introducing yourself to the group, and then we'll have the students introduce themselves.
Sure. Hi, I'm Gina Seymour. I work at Islip High School, and that's on Long Island in New York. I don't know if you have anyone from out of New Jersey.
We do, but not in that area right now. No.
Okay. So I'm out on Long Island. It's a suburb of New York City, so that's kind of our population. And my school is grades 9 through 12, and we do a lot of different things. Me personally, I'm involved. I do a lot of writing, so if you want to follow any of my writing, my blog kind of like leads you to a lot of my publications and whatnot. I mostly write about makerspaces, being inclusive and diverse, and how to make your makerspace inclusive. I just did a webinar this afternoon with the Film and Media Roundtable for ALA, and they were talking about inclusive makerspaces. So that was very enjoyable because it's something I do enjoy talking about. I enjoy talking about makerspaces for a purpose. Should I brag?
Yes, absolutely brag. And then I'm gonna follow up on some of the things you said later, even if you don't brag about them, but Go ahead.
Okay, so Library Journal Mover and Shaker, I'm very, very proud of that. Yay. Whereas my daughter said, "Oh, Mom, you're a cover girl." I was like, okay, that's nice.
We have to treasure these moments. We
yes,
really do. They're absolutely worth celebrating. Good for you.
And the ASL
social media.
Yeah, I finalist. Matthew, of course, won that category for social justice.
You know what? It's not.
And I expected that. I really did.
You know what, Gina? It's not enough. Of course, I think that everybody who was nominated was so.
They were phenomenal. They were so phenomenal. I mean, even I had a hard time. I was like, oh, I want to vote for that. I want to vote for everyone. I want to, and it's just a lot. But also, I like to write and work in the area of social justice and equity and inclusiveness. So I was happy to be recognized for that as well. Very pleased. If anyone's going to TLA, I'll be there in 2 weeks.
That's a great conference.
I love that conference. Oh my goodness.
I was there last year.
Loved it. Oh, that's right. I bumped into you at the Omni, right?
I went to your sessions.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What's TLA?
Texas Library Association. Texas has a combined conference. So the school, it's really great. The exhibits, it's just a huge conference.
It's like ALA midwinter.
Yeah.
I feel like
a bit better.
But better. But definitely. Oh, I shouldn't say that out loud.
No, it's okay. In case you guys don't know, ALA Midwinter is largely meetings. Where ALA Annual is really the big conference with the sessions. So if it's local, you tend to go to it if you're not part of a committee. But if it's not local, and you're not doing it.
Worth schlepping. Yeah.
Yes, it's not worth schlepping. I feel like I'm home. Oh gosh, this is so great. Anyway, let's introduce the students, and then I want to follow up on some of the things you introduced, Gina.
Okay.
So how about we start on the other side with Kathleen right now. Kathleen, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Kathleen, and I actually grew up in New Jersey, but now I am living in Michigan. Let's see if I can get this the right way, sort of in that neighborhood. That so southeastern Michigan, and just finished up my field experience in an elementary school library that is sort of interested in makerspaces but doesn't really know what to do about it. So I'm excited to learn more.
Okay, great. And did you start in Boston, the Boston area?
I did. I lived in Massachusetts until about 6 months ago. So trying to finish up in Michigan and figure out the differences between the two states and licensing and all those fun things.
Okay.
It's been a joy.
It's complicated.
Yeah.
We'll get you settled, I promise.
Thank you.
Susan's already settled. Susan found a job.
Yes. So today was my third day in my new job. I'm a elementary school librarian in Franklin Township, right next to New Brunswick. So I'm moving between two elementary schools right now in that school district. Pre-K to 5th grade is the grade range in there. Yeah, and they don't have makerspaces as far as I can see. Very small libraries in both schools. So.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about the possibilities and the whys about that. And then we have Amy.
So my name's Amy. I am finishing up field experience in a high school in South Brunswick. And right now what I'm trying to do is go visit the other schools. And I've been spending some time in the middle schools recently. And both the middle schools have makerspaces, but the high school doesn't. So I think that's interesting as well. But I really like the concept of a makerspace with a purpose as opposed to like the tech-oriented makerspace. So if I end up doing one, I feel like that's the direction I'm going to go. So I'm super excited to hear about it.
Okay, great. So, Gina, you said so many things that provoked me, but I think maybe we should talk about what compassionate making is, what making with purpose is. I was in high school. We didn't have a makerspace, but we had so much going on relating to STEM work, and I had a National Science Foundation computer teacher on the other end of our building who was doing all sorts of creative work in an area that was as big as an airport lounge, and we called it the airport lounge. And so it was like stuff was going on all the time. So my making had more to do with arts, music, language, where my friend on the other side did something else. So I wonder if it has something to do with your community and the needs.
I think every makerspace should be based on the community it serves. And to me, the first thing I did when I started a formal makerspace, and some of you say, well, we don't have a makerspace. That doesn't mean that you're not doing maker type activities. So to me, it's nice to have the individual space dedicated, but that doesn't mean that you can't push out programming regardless. So you can always start simple, start small, don't overwhelm yourself, and then you can build up to my space, which is just absolutely crazy. I have a 6-foot Ferris wheel that spins around, and roller coaster and whatever else they're building, and there's like no space. My library is starting to look like an episode of Hoarders. It really is, because I also like sustainability. I like to teach kids about reusing items, and we were just painting something recently, and I was like, okay, take the ice cream cups, the little plastic yogurt cups, and we're going to use that instead of getting paper plates and throwing them out, single-use purpose. So I try to encourage making with recyclables, because just upcycling anything that's available. So of course people know that I was going to say save stuff, but it really is hoard stuff. So I get all these donations, which again, if you don't have a budget, I do have a budget, but I just went to a budget meeting today and I was told to expect cuts. So it's always nice that you have options without making a purchase. So you can still do programming with your students.
So what are they doing, Gina? What kinds of things are they doing?
we just finished up a project for Habitat for Humanity. Some of our students are going to go off actually tomorrow to build, is it tomorrow? April 3rd, right? Yeah, tomorrow, which we're supposed to have a nor'easter, so we'll see how that works.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we're supposed to get a lot of rain. I don't know, and heavy winds. So we'll see if they go or they don't go. But the kids go off and they build a house. I think everyone's heard of Habitat for Humanity. But we did some wood transfers the last couple of weeks, so that this way, with like homey sayings, home sweet home type things, and they came out really pretty, really beautiful. And they're going to bring them to the families that they're, the houses that they're working on. So that's kind of a nice way of, being personal and making for a purpose. So they could just make these plaques and keep them and put them in their rooms, which, some kids do that too, which I'm perfectly fine with that as well. But I love when they make to give away. And that's what I mean by programming. Every year I do a Mother's Day kind of thing. And I'm just like, and I put up a big sign, have you made your mother a card yet? It's like, do it now. And I leave out all of the supplies. And, I might run a program on doing like little, lavender bath salts or something. And it's just sort of like, make something. And now I have a steady stream of kids who will come in and, oh, it's my mother's birthday, it's my aunt's birthday, it's whatever, Christmas time, holiday time. We do nonstop gift making, because I really feel as if we need to make for others, not just ourselves. I don't know, that's just me. I think we need to for others. And you know what? It needs to be modeled for the kids. They may get it at home. They may not get it at home. They may have supplies at home. They may not have supplies. I can provide that because, again, a lot of the things I do, I use a lot of upcycled materials so that I don't have to go out and buy things. But the crux of our program is Maker Care, where we have actual community services, where we will make items for the local animal shelter or a rescue group. Whoever contacts.
How do you establish the need in the community? How do you investigate that?
People actually come to us at this point because, like, we had one teacher whose nephew has cerebral palsy, and she asked us to make these bibs because you tend to drool a lot because you have neurological issues, and so we actually we have sewing machines also in our makerspace. We actually made these bibs for her, and she was a teacher in the school, and she was just, hey, do you think you can help us out? Now, it's easy to do something for an individual and then take that same skill and transfer it to, hey, calling up the United Cerebral Palsy local group in our area and just say, hey, would you guys be interested in this? We'd love to donate or whatever. Very often we have like Eagle Scout projects and, different things that we piggyback on. A lot of clubs like the Habitat for Humanity, they came to me and they're like, we want to do something extra, fine. And we come up with these different ideas. Or like the History Club, we did virtual reality headsets with them, and we watched Clouds Over Sidra, which is a Syrian refugee camp. So it was just kind of learning empathy through virtual reality. I mean,
that was a New York Times production, right?
United Nations.
United Nations.
I think.
Cool.
Yeah. It was. It's very powerful. I mean, you really walk through this.
I haven't done it. Yeah.
It's amazing. So like I try to partner up with different classes. Or like marine biology class, we do a lot of upcycled plastics with we make the Plarn jump ropes or sleep mats for the homeless. And right now my son is, he's in Afghanistan. And from what I understand, when he's walking around his tent, there's lots of sharp rocks. So we're gonna make the little mats so that this way, for him and for his unit, so that this way they can walk around and not get stabbed with these rocks that, are uncomfortable for them, and they don't have to wear their boots the whole time,
Oh, that's
whatever.
great.
So, I mean, you just, I don't know, opportunities seem to present themselves.
I
There's
think,
always someone in need, right?
yeah, I think finding problems is one of the parts of kind of design thinking, discovering what the problems are and trying to solve them. It's not like the problems are going to absolutely appear to you. You need to discover them and then do some strategizing around them. But I think my students have some questions. So Amy wanted to ask. Amy, go ahead and ask it.
So I was curious if you had scheduled times that you work in the Makerspace, or if you have like a club or a a group of students who kind of like a planning committee or something like that.
Yes, yes, yes. It's very flexible. I'm very flexible with the space. Students can just take it over and do their own thing. Like I'll have students who'll just come in and getting back to like some of the social justice issues, they want to run for student government or whatnot. I'll let them use the button makers. I'll let them take all of the supplies to make their posters, whatnot, because not every student can go home and have mom or dad take them to Staples and buy $30-$40 worth of supplies and such. So just to even the board. So we'll have students just come in and use whatever they need. I'll work with clubs after school, depending upon if they want me, and depending upon if I'm available to stay after on certain days. And then same thing with classrooms. Sometimes something will fit into the curriculum. Like I work so much with the family and consumer science teacher, the sewing teacher. Oh my goodness, we're constantly collaborating.
What does the project look like with that group?
Oh gosh, they do everything. They did the little dresses for Africa. Those were sewing dresses that we sent off. They also did the surgical caps for kids. They use really cool, colorful fabrics, and that was mailed off to a hospital in Rochester. And also Facebook and social media is a great place to find people in need across the country. A hospital or a group will say, hey, we need this, we need that. And then I'll present it to someone. I'll present it either to my students or to my teachers, and they'll say, oh, hey, I've been looking for a project. Like our catnip toys that we did, that we sewed. They were simple little squares, and the sewing teacher was like, I need a simple square. Usually they make pin cushions, but then she gets stuck with all these pin cushions because no one wants their pin cushion. So at least, they're sewing, and then the items, go.
So they went to shelters, right?
Yeah, exactly. We just threw a little catnip in there and we were good. So, I mean, really, a pincushion is really just a catnip toy in waiting,
So, how does that make the kids feel?
They love it.
Yeah.
They love it. They love it, particularly if they can present the item.
So they deliver these?
That, yeah. Sometimes they'll come to the animal shelter with me because that's close. And some of the kids have cars. I can't arrange transportation.
No.
I don't have a budget for that. And
it gets complicated in terms of litigiousness and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, you get one of the seniors who can drive and everyone pile in their car. It's not like
with seatbelts.
Yeah, exactly.
Gina, what does your schedule look like? Do you have a block schedule, or is it like a 50-minute class period?
We have 9 periods, 40 minutes each, with a couple of minutes of passing. So it's 40 minutes, and you can get stuff done in 40 minutes. You really can.
But so the teachers will come down to the library even with that short time?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Actually, next week is National Robotics Week, in case anyone wants to celebrate. So I have a whole bunch of classes scheduled for that. My ELLs and my special education students are going to come in and make some little brush bots, so this way they can make and take their own little robots. But I had already broken out the Cublets, and they're pretty much familiar with the coder mice and the what's the other guy that runs around? Oh, the Ozbots.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I have an English class coming in because they're going to map out the Tempest.
Oh, what a great idea. My favorite play.
Yeah, and little Ozbots are going to run around and, relive the story for everyone. So it's a way of rehashing what they've already learned and then adding the robots to it, in an attempt to kind of, celebrate National Robotics Week and just the different things that we have. We also had a history club. They did a whole map of the world, and I think they were trying to circumnavigate something. I don't remember what it was, but they seemed to really enjoy it. And I think it's more memorable when it's tactile.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's literally sticky.
Yeah.
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 So I want to hear from Susan and Kathleen, but I do want to amplify that when you have an opportunity to work with ESL or ELL and special ed, sometimes that experience can be incredibly impactful. Some of the students haven't had these experiences before. It really kind of makes them feel very, very important. I think that my biggest successes, I think, in terms of serious impact, were new students who had come from other countries, and I got very close to their families, and they came in on a regular basis. So anyway, Susan, Kathleen, what are you guys thinking? What's on your minds?
Well, I was interested in what Gina said about doing some maker activities because, I do think for me, starting small in my small library where I don't really have much of a budget. I have to look at the budget actually. Only being day 3, I haven't done that. But I imagine that it's not very big just based on what I've seen so far. So, advice for someone who's just getting started and maybe is overwhelmed at the idea of creating the space, talking to people who are years into it. It sounds so wonderful, but it's how do I get there? How do I start?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you walked around my space, you'd be like, oh my God, look at all those little bits. Look at she has a whole class set of Ozbots. What's this with the cuplets? How many coder mice does she have? How many stacks of Bloxels? A whole shelf with them? You got to be kidding. I didn't start like that. I started with donated items. Your best bet is, use social media to your advantage and just ask for donations. And particularly this time of year when the kids are kind of starting to get their college acceptance letters and parents are saying, oh goody, now we can clean out the den and we can clean out that room and get rid of all of this stuff. You can get a lot of Legos and Connects and, different building sets. By the way, your autistic children love, I find that they love having, activities that are more repetitive. That's what I have discovered. That's why I have so many building sets all over the library. It's kind of colorful.
So if Susan's in elementary school, there are probably middle school and high school kids who have outgrown some of their stuff.
Oh yeah, they'll donate.
Yeah.
Definitely. You'll definitely get donations. By the way, fabric. Everyone has fabric to donate. Everyone has yarn to donate. Any kind of arts and crafts. Everyone has 3 or 4 packets of a project. They buy a dozen of something for a party and then there's 2 or 3 left and they don't know what to do with the 2 or 3. I have so many, and then I just bring them out and I'm like, okay, it's hodgepodge day. Who wants to, pick out something? So definitely ask for crafting supplies. Because again, I've never bought fabric ever. And I do a lot of fabric projects. I love the random Acts of Kindness Week when we do the hearts. I found a quilted heart.com. That's wonderful. You sew up these hearts and then you leave them all around town and people find them and it's really neat. And then they mark that they found them. It's kind of like the painted rocks.
Yeah.
Where you leave them around and such. So
is it like yarn bombing?
Yeah. Yes. Yarn bombing is more of a activism because you're trying to draw attention to maybe a cause or that's usually the reason why you would yarn bomb. Although I've seen some yarn bombing at public libraries where it's just kind of like an art installation, which is kind of neat too. So, I mean, but yarn bombing typically is more of an activist movement, but now it's becoming more art installation, which I don't really care. I kind of like it. Yeah, I mean, but those are free things that you're going to get. And every once in a while, the Yarn Council will advertise free yarn and crochet hooks. And you can get a whole box of like 20 of each, and they have like a little starter kit because they kind of want you to make squares that you then donate to Warm America, or one of these groups that make Afghans to give away to. That's another project. Someone approached us for a veterans home by us, wanted shawls made because older people tend to get really, really cold. And, they wanted us to crochet a whole bunch of, shawls for them as well. So, yeah, people will approach you. There's a lot of people in your community that,
and the shops, if you can make friends with some of the merchants.
Yes, you'll get freebies too if they know what you're doing and what you're up to. Yeah, the people will give you free stuff, or they'll give you a discount. Or I had one manager at Barnes and Nobles, every time everything, like right after Christmas time, but it was more January, not really Christmas, like the day after Christmas kind of sale, where everything in Barnes and Nobles that they have like extras of, including their electronics, goes on sale for 75% off.
Wow.
I got the coder mice for $15. That's a $60 set. They had 2 left. I bought both of them because I was like, okay, these make really good gifts. And for $15, you couldn't beat that. But this is also because they know what I'm doing in the community, and they call me up, or they'll text me and say, hey, you might want to come in because we're putting such and such out. Or do you want me to hold something for you? And that's just nice, when you can work together to, make a difference.
So how do you make these opportunities? Like when I was a public librarian, I would actually take walks. That was encouraged by the Free Library of Philadelphia. At the time I was doing it, you were encouraged to take walks and wear white gloves and little hats. That was a long time ago.
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah, really, good Lord. But, we'd stop in, introduce ourselves, bring business cards, and make the runs. But you could also do this through Kiwanis clubs and Lions Club.
Lions Club, yeah, definitely.
And you could go to these meetings. And if you went to a Kiwanis Club or Lions Club meeting, all the business people are there. They have lunches. Get yourself invited to the lunch and tell them what you're doing. And you hit pretty much the whole business community in the neighborhood.
Yeah, and they give you a lot of money. I've gotten money from Lions Club, gotten also Rotary.
Rotary, yes. Rotary's big.
Rotary's big. And Rotary also has a
junior thing.
A junior club, Interact. Which
exactly.
Their motto is service above self. So they want to help. That is their goal in Rotary. So any one of them will easily give you a couple of $100 just, for like saying hi to them and breathing in their direction.
And they also want a speaker for their lunches. So sometimes my principals and my superintendents said, Joyce, would you please come and do the lunch? And so they'd say, take as much time as you want. We'll get you a sub. Just do a lunch. And so I'd share library resources and make, and then there'd always be an ask. And if you're in 575, you'll learn about the elevator pitch with the ask. And so that's kind of like you make the ask relevant to the group, but, and not a hardship.
That it's not that difficult.
No.
And you're not really doing a hard sell. They really want to give away their money. Help the community. That they are community-based organizations.
That's their mission.
Yeah, so it's really not.
It's a win-win. Yeah. But anyway, so
definitely locally.
So let's see. Who else has questions? I have loads of questions, but I want our students to be the ones asking.
Did I answer all your questions? Because sometimes I ramble off in a different direction. And
that's the way we roll here.
Yeah, no, that was very, very helpful. Some good ideas and tips on getting
puzzles.
Started.
So start with puzzles. Start with simple basic stuff is very helpful.
So, Gina, I think one of the things that, in a high school, we generally have lots of space. I had a high school library where everything could happen. So I didn't need to weed to make space for anything. I didn't need to move shelves because I had lots of open space. But it's possible to, Shannon always talks about using one of her Vera Bradley bags as like an old one, as a maker kit, and she'd bring the bag around, or getting somebody's old little red wagon or bins, and just like starting not with a space necessarily, but the kinds of kits you can easily put together, and that could be mobile and could be loaned.
Yep.
So you don't necessarily have to have an identified physical space.
You really don't have to have a dedicated space. I've done this enough times where I've gone to maker fairs, so I know how to pack and haul stuff, and we've been very effective making, in the open air, so to speak. Last week we had an ENL cultural night, so I...
For my students, what is an ENL?
English as a new language, sorry.
Okay.
So we had a cultural night at our school where, we had a lot of food. That's why I volunteered to go, because I was like, oh,
what fun.
Eat me ethnic food.
Sure.
So I was, my table was Guatemala, and we made the little worry dolls. That's a simple thing that you can do in an elementary school, all the way through high school, because all the kids are worried about something. And it's also a good, Hispanic Heritage Month activity, et cetera, et cetera. So, little pipe cleaner, a little yarn and bead and whatever else. I'm sure someone has seen them on my website. And really, really simple activities, but it lends itself to talking about other cultures. So I lost my mind when we started talking about food. Sorry. So I forget.
I completely get it.
But you get the idea. So we were talking about being out and about. So between the fairs, the different cultural nights, that, you throw everything on a book truck, and, you have a couple of plastic bins or whatever. And, you just go. You can be mobile very easily. So that's why I don't really feel as if you have to create a maker space. I think what most people need to do is create a maker program.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So how do you start? How do you identify the needs? The needs are different, of course. So your top 5 list would look different, say, from Amy's or Susan's or Kathleen's. How do you start identifying the needs, or what will work in your school? And feel free to interrupt my questions with your own students, because yours trump mine.
No, it's fine. Actually, what you would do, and what I did, I put out a whiteboard and markers, and I wrote a question. I had actually 2 or 3 whiteboards all in a row, and I asked several different questions, and I left it there for the students. And I basically had them design their program. And most of my kids were more interested in crafting than they were in either robotics or electronics.
Interesting.
That's what they wanted to do. So if you build a program based on what the kids want to do, they'll come. Yeah. So my kids wanted to sew, but I added at one point, I said, okay, we have our gloves for winter. Here's some conductive thread. Sew the tips up, and now you have a smartphone adaptable glove that you didn't have to go out and buy for, $20, $30, whatever. So, you can mix some of the tech with the crafting, but you can't, like, everyone wants to do the electronic LED light up shirts and whatnot. But if they don't know how to do basic crafting or sewing, they can't go to that next level. So, I even had one student come up to me and say, here, can you cut this for me, Mrs. Seymour? And I'm like, you're in high school and you don't know how to use a pair of scissors. No, start learning.
Good for you.
Come on. So,
well, honestly, I think that I grew up I was the granddaughter of two tailors, and so sewing was part of my life, and so was crafting, like knitting and crocheting. But I don't think
Nowadays, no.
no.
Less. I find that it's less. I find that most of the kids, they look at the sewing machines and like, can we learn how to do that? Can we, and that's my
Yeah.
good opportunity as a staff member in the school to say, you should talk to your guidance counselor if you're really interested in this. We do
Sure.
have a class in it. So I don't really take away from what the teachers are doing in the engineering classes or what they're doing in the sewing classes or any of the other classes. I kind of complement it. The kids who can't take those classes, like our ELLs or our special ed students, because it won't fit in their schedule, it's there for them. But then the kids are kind of interested in it, they can take it a step further and
I think
learn
that's really
more,
important.
exposed to it.
So the learning might happen formally in a class, and then the application of whatever's going on with that learning could happen in the library. That's where the rubber hits the road, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we should trust kids to be, creative and, to be thinkers, because they can, they can do it. I don't think they always get a chance to do it. And in our situation, they only have 40 minutes. So it's very rushed, so giving them a little bit of
Do they
time.
come in before and after school?
Yes.
What time do you open?
We open at 7 a.m. And we close at 3. Our day ends at 1:58.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. Yeah, we're up at the crack of dawn.
I opened at 6:30, and I had kids waiting at the door.
Yeah, it's like, really?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
So I want my students. Susan looked like she almost raised her hand. Yes.
Yeah, I have a question. So again, like high school being very kind of different than elementary school.
Yeah.
My schedule is very, very structured,
Yeah.
and there's not really like open library time. Like kids aren't coming in there's not like a study hall or something. I mean, if I did a collaboration with a teacher, then we could do like a maker type activity in that class. But I mean, part of me thinks that like part of the beauty of the Makerspace is that you sort of give the kids the freedom and the space to do whatever it is that they want, rather than me saying, this is what you have to do, but I guess before school or after school potentially could be time I could have it open.
I mean, you could do it as an add-on after school, like a club or such, but usually they don't want to do that because they'd have to pay you after school.
And there's buses and
exactly, unless you have the late buses and whatnot. But at the elementary level, there are still quite a few things that you can do with them. I mean, hopefully you've seen this where the 3 little pigs, and the hair dryer, and you have to build a house that the hair dryer wolf is not going to blow down. And so you could do a unit on fairy tales and stories and such, and then take one of your library periods to do a little STEM activity like that. I mean, there's there's a lot of
never forget that.
Yeah, because and even for the older kids, Mercedes and the Chocolate Pilot, it's the story of the Berlin airdrop where the pilots drop the chocolates down for the kids. We're on the other side of the wall. That's another parachute type activity, and all you need are like some Hershey Kisses or the the little mini bars or whatever, but they have to construct some sort of parachute that would work. There's a lot of literature based. I have some of it on my blog, some literature connections. I think that's my tag that I use if you need to search. And then on Maker Maven, Jamie has pages to projects. So I've gotten some ideas from her as well. So there are ways to connect the literature, and even the Guatemalan worry dolls. There's a really cute book, Silly Billy, and he tells his grandmother that he's been very worried and upset, and she says, "Oh, here, let's make this doll, and he puts it under his pillow, and then he starts making them for his friends because they're worried. And, it's a nice story, and, you get a chance to talk to them about, I think the elementary kids are very stressed out too.
Yeah, I mean, library is definitely, I think, a place where they can kind of like sort of decompress from some of the other classes. At least that's how I feel. Maybe for the older kids more so. The younger kids, they
So
love reading story and stuff like that
Why
too.
don't you do some more social emotional activities with them? Reading some mindfulness books with them, and then do some some of that mindful coloring activities, or a mindful book. And I have this great recipe for the squeeze balls. Those are a lot of fun, very easy to make. It's just a balloon, and you take the little magic beads that you've hydrated in little water bottles, and you squeeze it into the balloon, tie the little knot, and then now they have the squeeze thing. And there's just, they need, and the puzzles. There's also on my blog, there's a lot about stress, because I don't care what age group they are, the kids seem to be very stressed out. So I always try to incorporate, and even on our iPads, we have meditation apps that we have as well. These are all different ideas for a makerspace that you can kind of
Gina,
incorporate.
I'm wondering, you don't necessarily need to do formal instruction. I wonder, Nikki Robertson just left her job at the elementary, but one of the things she was trying to do in terms of giving students a variety of activities was putting the makers stuff into stations and having students rotate around them. And then as they entered, there would be a mindful activity. There'd be a circle kind of thing, just to kind of, here we are, we're a community, let's do this thing for 5 minutes and do some thinking and sharing, and then we're ready to kind of move around the stations or whatever it was that she had planned. And so she was incorporating a number of things into a very fixed period, and the students got a variety of different experiences. And that might be, and then you're also differentiating in some way, especially if the learners have a little bit of choice as they go around. How many elementary schools do you have, Susan, in the district?
The district has 7. I'm moving between 2 of them.
That's a lot.
That's hard too.
Yeah.
Being split, I once did 3 schools. that was not pleasant.
No, and Gina, I think one of the things one of the messages to Susan and people who are in those positions, you may love that. However, it is your first professional position. Something else may come along soon. And sometimes, even if you're not in an ideal situation, do the very, very best job you can.
Oh, definitely.
And keep your eyes open.
Oh, always.
We're not landing in the first spot we're landing in is not necessarily the best spot for us.
Oh, I figured that it would be a good, if I can master being in 2 different places and keeping myself organized in 2 different libraries, then if I get a job where I'm just in one, I'll be like, oh, this is so great. This is easy now, Yeah,
prove yourself. Learn what you can. Do the very best you can for those children. And there will be, and you may stay there, and that's great. And there will be other children should you want to move at some point. And they will need you just as much.
Definitely challenge yourself, and I'll admit it. I update my CV every couple of months easily. I'm always looking for opportunities. So never stop looking, growing, challenging yourself. No matter how far along in your career you are, there's a lot of opportunities out there. Take advantage of it. Yeah.
And you guys are all going to be very desirable hires. So yes. Okay. So other questions? I don't know if we've solved Susan's yet, but do you have some ideas? Susan, you got a couple.
You're muted, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean, yeah, you guys have been really, really helpful. I definitely have some, I mean, you know, I have a lot of ideas of things I want to try and do. And this has definitely been really helpful to add to some little fun activities just to kind of get.
And they have, connect them to curriculum. If you figure out what's happening, what are they studying? Are they studying, if they're studying bridges, whoa, what can you, if they're studying medieval,
weaponry, the catapults. They love that. Or is it March is Music in Our Schools month? You can do a whole bunch, pick out whatever month, Robotics Week, coding, Computer Science and Education Week. There's so many different things that you can, tie into. Certainly any kind of school activity, tie into that, because then you're part of the whole school, and it's easier to justify if you have a need to justify.
And if you're solving someone else's problem, like the history teacher who needs to get something else kind of enhanced, you can take things over. You don't need to invent stuff. The more you can become part of the curriculum, the better. That you're not creating an isolated piece of instruction that has nothing to do with the rest of the program. It's great to enhance everything, to add literature, to do cultural enrichment, and it's also great when you can say, "How can I help you teach this?"
Yeah, because you know what? Some people, you'll find you'll never collaborate with them. They just don't, whatever. But by and large, you'll find that once you are helpful once, and then you're helpful twice, you'll always be busy, because, some of your staff will greatly appreciate that. So yeah, try to keep that in mind, that you can be very, helpful and proactive in those ways.
I have a question.
Sure.
So in middle school and high school, the kids don't necessarily come to you. So when you started the Makerspace, did you just sort of set things out, or did you invite them in to do certain things, or how did you sort of get it?
So sometimes I still do it, I'll just leave stuff out. And, natural, what everyone wants to do is touch, particularly teens. They're like, what is that? They'll poke at it. I mean, I have a rotary phone in the library, and it's fun to watch, two students argue over how do you actually use the phone. It's actually one of my favorite activities. And that's another good thing. Take apart stations. You can just, or breaker spaces, I think they're calling them now. Where, again, that's all donated stuff, and even your IT department, taking apart a keyboard is a lot of fun, by the way. What's inside them and how they work, and then you can use the keys for little crafty activities. I mean, there's a lot that you can do, upcycling that. But the kids, as I say, they come in for their lunch periods, or whatever period they have off, and if they see something on the table, I mean, I usually set up a table with an activity and with step-by-step instructions, so that if I'm there, I can participate with them. If I'm not there, they can do something on their own. Because sometimes I am busy with classes, so I can't always be everywhere. So leaving out instructions on how to, do whatever project you've left out, that's helpful. Working with clubs. And again, the clubs, they need to come up with ideas also. And a lot of the clubs in your middle school and high school are service clubs. So again, if in my case, I come up with these ideas, and they're like, oh, you just solved my programming for the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks. You're everyone's best friend. So again, it's a good way to collaborate with your staff and be part of your school. So yeah, I would leave things out. I also celebrate different activities, like Yalsa had Teen Tech Week, or Computer Science and Education Week, and I would leave things out specifically, or during like Robotics Week, I invited staff to come in. Hey, would you like to use robots with your class? Who wants to sign up? So keep that in mind. Take advantage of those different holidays or celebrations, because they are a big draw to get people in to see what you're doing. And also for the elementary school, that whole, oh gosh, I lost my train of thought. I was thinking about, yeah, I guess you can't, no. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. It happens. Yeah. It'll come back to me, and I will get back to you, Susan. I'm sorry. So did I answer your question about middle schools and high schools and leaving stuff out and how it kind of works? Again, I'm very flexible because I found you can't really, you can't micromanage. I don't think it's worth it. I just don't.
Do you ever have like where you go and you're like, this is how you sew, or do you just sort of leave it out there, and if they already know, then that's good? Or do you just have the stuff?
The sewing machines, I prefer that they know how to sew, because they're very easy to like break.
Yeah.
I bought the same sewing machines as excuse me, what we have downstairs in the Family and Consumer Science room, so that I have other people in the school who know how to use them. So that's helpful for mentors. So whether it's an adult mentor or another student mentor, they know how to use these machines and they can assist. So that was kind of a strategic planning on my part. I don't leave out my fabric scissors because they just don't understand the concept of you can't use them. So they only come out when I have a group and I can yell at everyone and say, don't even think about using them on anything but fabric. I don't leave out there's only a few things I leave in my office, like the soldering iron. That only comes out for certain activities, and that is highly supervised. Even though I know I have certain students who know how to use the soldering iron even better than I do, it's just a safety issue. So there's a few safety issues that certain items will not get left out. My box cutters, I don't leave out, but do I have them? And, if we need them to cut up cardboard, will I hand it to the kids? Yeah, and you'll see kids all over the library with box cutters, but then I put them back in my office. But the kids also know where these things are, and if they want to use them, they'll come in my office and say, Mrs. Seymour, I need X, Y, and Z. And I'll say, hey, it's on that shelf, just grab it.
That's something we haven't really talked about in class, and I want to emphasize that you said this. So your collection is your books, but often we have this box or this group of things out that is part of our collection. And we don't necessarily have an official circulation, but there's supplies that are in a box, and there's an understanding in the community that you take and then you bring back. And there are some things that are there, and then there are these special things that really have some safety issues attached to them. Like I left out, wimpy scissors. My good scissors were in my drawer, and the kids, some of my kids knew where to get it. And my volunteers were in charge of a lot of stuff. And so when you have high school volunteers, that is like a beautiful thing, because it's golden. They're not only in charge, they're like super, they're tougher than you are sometimes. Yes. Are you sure you need scissors? No, and some things really are dangerous, but it's important to know that your collection, you are the go-to place for a whole lot of things. And when you become that go-to place, you lend a green screen, or you lend, the robot, or, these are things that are part of your collection and become part of, the assets and why people come to you. And Gina, the other thing you mentioned about that whiteboard, you solicited interest using that whiteboard, but you can put up a quote of the day and then have people respond to it. So this participation on that whiteboard with the marker can be part of kind of community culture. So there are all sorts of things you can do.
But it's student voice,
It's
and
student voice,
that's
yeah.
what you want, you know.
Yeah.
It's their makerspace. It is their library. You know,
Yes.
you could go out and buy thousands of dollars worth of whatever robots, but at the end of the day, if your kids aren't that interested in them, it's really hard to get, you know, them excited about something they're not excited about. So it's easier to create a program based on you know,
Interest.
what their interest.
Sure.
That's not to say that you can't introduce other things, and that's what I've done over the course of years and months and weeks and what have you, is that you know, I'll ask them what they want, but then every once in a while I'll say, hey, would you like to try, at the holidays we did the light up cards with the Rudolph's little nose that lights up. So we did the, you know, the copper, you know, adhesive tape, and then we put the LED and set up the battery, and oh my God, they love that.
All right, so that brings a question to mind, and I want to respect your time. I want to let you go pretty soon, but how do you learn this stuff? How do you know how to do this stuff?
Oh, well, you know what I did with the cublets? I put them out on the table and I said, hey guys, we just got this in. Let's see how these things work. I have no idea. And I did that also with the little bit steam sets. I had the regular little bits, but I didn't have the steam sets. And I had just gotten them in before Christmas last year or the year before. And it was like, you know, it was actually, the kids kind of like that. They're like, we're the first ones opening it. I'm like, yeah. See,
they love opening boxes.
Open it up and you get to open up. You're the first ones, and you know, they kind of get excited that you trust them. And then it's actually good to model, saying, I don't know how this works. It's not a bad thing for them, because they think that they're supposed to know everything, or they think that you're supposed to know everything. And we don't. And the purpose of the Makerspace is to develop that idea of problem solving. Absolutely. So I've got all this stuff. I don't know what it does. Let's figure it out. And you know what? Collaboration. Let's figure it out together, you know. And that was pretty neat to watch them.
And it's important not to be afraid to not know something.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's absolutely okay. And I always said, like, whenever I was trying something new with a teacher, that it's okay to be beta. We're not perfect right out of the box. And the kids need to see that we have growth mindsets as well.
Definitely. Oh, that's what I was wanting to say about the elementary school as well, is that if a good way to test out different activities that you want to do, like with a lot of students, is to pick. That's why I've actually gotten very good at working with our life skills, our special education students, and our ELLs, is that because they tend to be smaller groups. Mm-hmm. So I work with them first, and then I see about rolling it out to an entire class of 28 or more students, or opening it up to the whole school, because then I know I've already worked out the kinks. I hate to say it, but it's better to pick a smaller group to work with. Nice. And if you can do it with that small group that has certain, special needs, then you could do it with a large regular ed class, or with the whole school. So that's a good starting point if you're a little nervous. But again, failure is great. And if you can model failure, that's even better. Yeah.
And you're modeling it for teachers as well. They don't have to be perfect either. And, I have lots of stories about that. Anyway, why don't we have some final thoughts from the students, and Gina, maybe you can give us some final advice for these librarians who are just ready to go out into practice.
Okay.
Any final ideas from our students? If not, I don't want to do a whole 2-minute wait here. Gina, any tips or final advice before we
tips? Try to go to a conference, pick one, and just talk to everyone and anyone that you can find. I find that I've grown the most from attending conferences and just plopping myself, even at lunch, just next to someone and just saying, "Hi, I'm Gina." And, I think getting to learn what other people do and how they do it is very helpful. I think being on Twitter or Instagram or, follow, develop your own little network of people that you follow. I think that's been very helpful. Different Twitter chats, and also keep your eyes open. Just, yeah. Opportunity is always out there, and maybe you'll stay with your job that you're going between two schools or whatever, but then there's other opportunities. And I have to say I've been very fortunate over these years that I'm now writing more. I write professionally. I'm on my second book, which I'm excited about.
What's it about, Gina?
It's creating change makers. It's youth social action, for librarians, to help youth. And so I'm really excited about that one. And of course, my other one was the Makers with the Cause. And I'm writing a lot of different articles, and I'm teaching graduate school at one of our local graduate programs. So, so even though I still have my day job, I keep my eyes open for other opportunities as well. And, that could come across, yeah.
Thank you. I'm so grateful for your time.
Always.
Thank you. Always. Kind. All right, I'm going to stop the recording.